Hello, brothers and sisters. Today, for this Sunday's reading, is we're going to be looking at transforming the goods of the world and our wealth, and use this as a conduit for genuine relationships. Well, the parable in this Sunday's gospel, taken from Luke, involves a very shrewd, albeit dishonest steward who he's charged with wasting his master's goods, and he's about to be fired. Now, he's prepared to do anything to keep himself alive, short of working, manual labor, and begging. Those two options are out. So the manager's panic of his inability to do manual labor or to beg puts his mind into high gear to come up with a different plan to ensure himself to have a stable future. He acts shrewdly, but he ends up robbing his master a second time. I guess you could say the guy is consistent in looking out for number one. So he calls the debtors and reduces the debts they owe to the master in order to make friends of them so that they can repay him later. He's created a safety net for himself, and the master will get a partial remittance. But he does so through a very corruptive practice, and he obtains gratitude through corruption. The guy is reducing relationships into a transaction, which sadly is a very common practice today. Now, what is perplexing is that Jesus is holding up this dishonest steward as someone to emulate, not for his dishonesty, but for his prudence. That is, the man is combining intelligence with cunning, which enables him to overcome a very difficult situation. If the parable ended at this juncture, we may see the point that Jesus is making, but it'd be very hard to cozy up to the guy who's very conniving and manipulative. But the hinge to reading this narrative lies in what Jesus says at the end of the parable. Make friends for yourself by means of unrighteous mammon, so that when it fails, they may receive you into the eternal habitation. Well, what does all this mean at first blush? It seems to be very confusing, but if we unpack it from Jesus's perspective, it resonates with gospel values. The unrighteous mammon refers to wealth or money, which in medieval literature was often referred to as the devil's dung. The pursuit of wealth can be very problematic, as it can propel one to build walls to keep our wealth in and to keep other people out. So to protect our wealth, walls can create division and discrimination as we strive to keep people out of our insular group and tribe. Jesus, on the other hand, seems to be encouraging his friends to reverse the course. We hear, make friends by yourself by means of mammon. It is an invitation to know how to change goods and wealth into relationships. Because people, especially the poor, are worth more than things and count more than the wealth that we possess. I think that this parable may be the basis of the Catholic Church's teaching tradition of the common good, which represents the sum total of all relationships that promote the dignity, unity, and equality of all people. We hear that from Gaudium Spes, one of the documents of Vatican II. One of the implications of this foundational truth is the principle of a universal destination of goods. What does that mean? The Conciliar Fathers of Vatican II boldly proclaim that all created things should be shared fairly by all mankind under the guidance of justice tempered by charity. Wow. All created things should be shared fairly by all mankind under the guidance of justice tempered by charity. Wow. Do you think we'd ever see this doctrine included in either the platform of one of our political parties? I don't think so. So what this teaching entails, it's not those who have a lot of wealth who bear fruit, but those who create many bonds, many relationships, many friendships by using mammon for God's purposes, namely to promote the common good. You see, everything we have, everything we are comes from God. Wealth is just one more thing that's been given to us. So Jesus points to the ultimate aim of his exhortation. Make friends for yourselves by means of mammon, so that they may receive you into eternal habitations. In other words, if we are going to transform wealth into the tools of building fraternity and solidarity, not only will God be there to welcome us into heaven, but also those whom we have shared our goods and wealth. Properly exercising stewardship, that's what the Lord has placed in our hands. Now, the premier good that God has entrusted to us is life itself. Stewardship of life means that we protect life at all stages from conception to natural death. This November, we will have the opportunity to affirm that life begins at conception, which is confirmed by science, technology, along with our tradition. The first measure on the ballot will expand abortion to the third trimester, which will become part of our state constitution, which means that taxpayer monies will fund abortions. The measure does nothing to provide maternal aid for women or children. So please give careful consideration as you go to the polls in November. People of God, this gospel makes the question of the dishonest steward dismissed by the master resonate with us. His question is ours as well. What shall I do now? And that's the question posed for us in November. And facing our shortcomings, failures, and sin, Jesus assures us that right here and now, that we can put things in right order by using the goods and wealth given to us to promote the common good, which entails the universal destination of goods, which includes life itself. In other words, the goods and wealth that we have do not absolutely belong to us, but they must be used according to God's purposes, which means they must be used prudently and shared with our brothers and sisters, especially those most in need. If we do so, then we will have acted with prudence. That is, we will recognize that we all are children of God who are being called into the kingdom of heaven. Amen.